Yes, honey. Come live with us. My mother is retired, and she's going to help with our expenses. I heard those words coming out of my son Robert's mouth as he spoke on the phone in the hallway. It was 11 o'clock at night on Wednesday. He thought I was sleeping, but I wasn't. For months, sleep had been slipping away from me like water through my fingers. I lay motionless in bed, my eyes wide open in the darkness of my room. Every word that came out of his lips pierced my chest like something cold and heavy. His voice sounded cheerful, enthusiastic, as if he were closing a good business deal. And perhaps it was. A deal where I was the merchandise. My mother is retired and she's going to help with our expenses. I repeated those words in silence, moving around in my head like an echo that wouldn't stop. Help with the expenses. That's all I was to him now. Not his mother, not the woman who carried him in her arms through whole nights when he cried with colic, not the one who sold her gold rings to pay for his college, just a retiree who could help with the expenses. I felt something break inside me, something that had been cracked for a long time, but at that moment it split in two. I didn't cry. I learned years ago that tears don't change anything. I just lay there, staring at the dark ceiling of my room, listening to my son continue to talk to that woman, to Lauren, his fiancée, the one who never looked at me with affection, the one who always found fault with everything I cooked, with how I dressed, with how I spoke. Yes, yes, she doesn't suspect a thing. Tomorrow I'm going to start organizing everything. We'll bring her in a week at the latest. Those were the last words I managed to hear before Robert hung up the phone. I heard his footsteps moving away down the hall. I heard the guest room door close softly. He was staying over that night. As he sometimes did when he had early meetings in the city, I remained still, petrified. My name is Ophelia Miller. I am 71 years old. I have lived alone in this house for 5 years, ever since my husband Edward died of a sudden heart attack one morning in April. This house is small, but it's mine. We paid for it for 30 years, brick by brick, sacrifice after sacrifice. The walls are white, although time has turned them an opaque grey. There are cracks in the kitchen ceiling that I never repaired. There's a damp stain in the corner of the bathroom that grows every winter. But it's my home, my space, the only place in the world where I still feel like myself. Or at least it was until that night. That Wednesday night when I heard my only son planning my life as if I were a piece of furniture that could be moved from one place to another, as if my decisions didn't matter, as if my voice didn't exist. On Thursday morning, Robert woke up early. I heard him moving around the house while I pretended to sleep. He made coffee, he ate something quick, and he left without saying goodbye, without knocking on my room door. No see you later, Mum. Nothing. Just the sound of the front door closing and his car engine driving away down the street. I got up when the silence filled everything again. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I saw a woman with short, shapeless grey hair. I saw deep wrinkles around my eyes and mouth. I saw someone the world considers invisible, an old lady, a burden, an expense. But behind those tired eyes, there was something else. There was a woman who still remembered who she was before she became a mother, a wife, a widow. There was a woman who still had dignity, and that woman was not going to let herself be used just like that. I ate breakfast in silence, toast with butter and black coffee, always the same. I looked out the kitchen window at the small yard where Edward used to plant tomatoes. Now there is only dry earth and some weeds growing uncontrollably. I don't have the strength to maintain it. I don't have the desire. Friday. Robert didn't come, nor Saturday, nor Sunday. 3 days without showing up, without calling, without a text. He, who came every 2 weeks at least to have coffee with me, suddenly disappeared. And I knew why. He was organizing everything behind my back, preparing the trap, clearing the way to take me to live with him and Lauren without giving me a chance to refuse. Monday morning, I heard a car stop in front of my house, then another. I looked out the living room window and felt the air leave my lungs. It was Robert, and he was accompanied by Lauren. Behind them, a white moving truck with orange signs on the sides. 3 men got out of the truck, waiting for instructions. Robert rang the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times, insistently, as if he had the right, as if this were his house and not mine. I opened the door slowly. Robert was smiling, a big, fake smile, one of those you put on for photographs. Lauren was behind him, with dark sunglasses and an expensive purse hanging from her arm. She wasn't smiling. She never did with me. "Mom, what a surprise. Good thing you're awake. We came to get you. Everything is ready." His voice sounded too cheerful, too forced, as if he were acting in a play. I stood in the doorway, looking at him without saying anything, waiting. "We prepared a beautiful room for you in our apartment. You'll be much better there. You'll have company. You won't be alone. And we are going to take care of you. Right, honey?" Lauren nodded her head, but her lips were tight. She didn't say a word. She just looked inside my house with those cold eyes she always had, as if calculating, as if measuring. "Robert, I'm not—" "No, Mum. Don't say anything. We already talked about it." "Well, we didn't talk about it. But I know it's what's best for you. You're alone here. This house is too big for you. And besides, your retirement, well, between all of us, we'll manage it better." There it was, the naked truth. My retirement. My $400 a month, that was all I had left after a lifetime of work. That was what he wanted. Not me, not my company, just my money. The men from the truck were waiting in the street. Robert made a gesture with his hand, as if telling them to wait a moment longer. Lauren took out her phone and started typing something, ignoring me completely. "Mum, let me in. We're going to pack your things. It's not much. The essentials are enough. Clothes, documents, some photos. We'll sell or donate the rest. After all, you don't need it anymore." Sell, donate, you don't need it anymore. Every word was a sentence, a blow, a silent theft of everything I was. But I didn't move. I stood in the doorway, my hands gripping the frame, feeling my heart beating harder and harder. Robert began to lose patience, his smile twisted slightly. "Mum, don't make things difficult. It's for your own good. For my own good." How many times in my life had I heard that phrase? And how many times did it mean exactly the opposite? Robert took a step forward, trying to push me gently inside. But at that moment, when his hand touched my shoulder, when he thought I was going to give in, as always, something changed. Something in my gaze. Something in my posture. "I'm not going anywhere, Robert." My voice came out firm, clear, without a tremor. Robert stopped. Lauren looked up from her phone for the first time. Both of them looked at me as if I had spoken in another language. "What do you mean you're not going anywhere?" "Mum, everything is set up. The guys are waiting." "I don't care that it's set up. This is my house, and I am not leaving." There was a long silence. Awkward. Robert looked at Lauren. Lauren looked at him. They both seemed confused, as if they hadn't planned for this possibility, as if it had never occurred to them that I could say no. "Mum, don't be stubborn. This is ridiculous. You'll be better off with us." "Better for who, Robert?" "For you." He pressed his lips together. His face turned red. Lauren took a step closer, taking off her dark sunglasses. Her eyes were hard as stones. Miss Ophelia, I don't think you understand the situation. Robert is trying to help you. You can't keep living alone. It's dangerous. And besides, frankly, you don't have the resources to keep this house. My resources are mine, and this house is too. Lauren let out a brief, dry laugh, full of contempt. Your resources? $400 a month. That's not even enough for the electricity and water. It's enough for me. Robert held up his hands, trying to calm the situation. Enough already. Mum, you are going to come in, you are going to pack, and we are leaving. Period. I'm not going to keep discussing this. Then leave. Because I'm not moving from here. And I slammed the door, right in their faces, with force, with anger, with all the dignity I had left. After closing the door, my hands were shaking, not from fear, from fury contained for too long. I heard Robert and Lauren talking outside. Their voices were a confused murmur, then the sound of the truck starting up, then silence. I leaned against the door, breathing deeply. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my temples. 71 years old, and only now was I learning to say no. Only now was I defending what was mine. I walked into the living room and sat on the worn couch where Edward used to fall asleep watching the news. I closed my eyes and let the memories come. Because I needed to remember. I needed to feel again everything I had given, everything I had sacrificed. To understand why this betrayal hurt so much. Robert was born in February of 1979. It was a difficult birth. 32 hours of labor in a public hospital where the nurses were too busy to listen to my screams. Edward waited outside all that time, pacing back and forth in the hall. When he finally heard the baby's cry, he rushed in. There were tears in his eyes. It's a boy, he told me. A strong boy. Robert weighed 9 pounds 4 ounces. He was huge, pink, perfect. I looked at him and felt that everything in the world made sense. I felt that my life had just truly begun. Edward worked in a furniture factory. I worked cleaning houses, 3 houses a week, 6 working days. I earned $50 per house, $150 a week, $600 a month. It wasn't much, but it was enough if we were careful, if we didn't allow ourselves luxuries, if we saved every penny. Robert grew up in this house. We painted his room light yellow when he was 2 years old. We bought a second-hand crib that Edward sanded and varnished until it looked new. I sewed his clothes. Pants from cheap fabrics I found at the market. Shirts I made by hand from scraps. Robert never had new shoes until he started elementary school. He always inherited them from the children of the ladies I worked for. But he didn't know it. I never told him we were poor. I never let him feel less than other children. There was always food on the table. There was always a hug when he came home from school. There was always someone waiting for him. When Robert turned 7, Edward had an accident at the factory. A circular saw cut off 3 fingers on his left hand. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks. The company didn't pay anything. They left us alone. I had to work double. 5 houses a week, 7 days, without a break. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and came back at 8 o'clock at night. Robert stayed with my neighbor, Ms. Carmen. She took care of him for $5 a day, $35 a week that came out of my salary. Edward fell into a depression. He stopped looking for work. He said no one wanted to hire a man with a mutilated hand. He said he was no longer good for anything. I cried silently at night while he slept. I cried from exhaustion, from frustration, from fear. But I kept going, because I had to. because Robert needed me. The years passed. Robert finished elementary school, then high school. He was always a good student. He got high grades. The teachers said he was smart, that he had a future, that he could go to college. College. That word sounded so distant, so impossible. But I wanted to give him that. I wanted him to have what I never had. I wanted him to study, to be someone, to not have to clean other people's houses or work in dangerous factories. When Robert finished high school, he came to me with a pamphlet for the state university. He wanted to study business administration. Tuition cost $200 a month, plus books, plus transportation, plus food. In total, about $300 a month. I earned $600. Edward had gotten a job as a night security guard and earned $400. We had $1,000 a month between the two of us. The house cost $250 for the mortgage. Utilities, $100. Food, $200. That left $450. If Robert studied, we would have $150 left for everything else. It was impossible. But I said yes. I sold my gold rings. The ones Edward gave me when we got married. They were the only thing of value I owned. I sold them for $1,200. With that money, we paid for Robert's first 4 months of college. Then I had to look for more work. I started washing laundry at night. The ladies would bring me bundles of dirty clothes, and I would wash them by hand in the basin in the yard. $5 per bundle. I washed 10 bundles a night. $50 extra a week. $200 a month. That covered college. My hands filled with calluses. My back started hurting all the time. But I didn't care. Robert was studying. Robert was going to be someone. For 4 years I worked like that. Without stopping. Without rest. Without complaining. Robert graduated with honors. He got a job at an accounting firm. He started earning well. $1,200 a month. Then $1,500. Then $2,000. He moved to an apartment downtown. A small but nice place. I thought he would invite us to visit. But he never did. He said he was very busy, that work consumed him, that he would come when he had time. The time never came. Edward died when Robert was 32 years old. It was sudden, a heart attack while watching television. One moment he was there, breathing, alive. The next, he was gone. I called Robert, crying. He arrived 2 hours later. He stayed for the funeral. 3 days. Then he left. He said he had to go back to work, that he couldn't stay any longer. He left me alone in this house, with the memories, with the silence, with the absence. The years passed. Robert would come to visit me once a month, sometimes every 2 months, always in a hurry, always looking at his watch. We would have coffee. We would talk about unimportant things, and he would leave. Then he met Lauren. He introduced her to me 2 years ago, a tall, thin woman with straight black hair and cold eyes. She worked in advertising. She earned more than Robert. She came from a family with money. You could tell by the way she talked, by the way she dressed, by the way she looked at me. From the beginning, I knew she didn't want me around. I saw it in the way she greeted me, a kiss in the air, without touching me, without warmth, as if I were contagious. "What a cozy house," she said the first time she came. And I knew that cozy was her polite way of saying old and ugly. Robert changed when he started dating her. He became more distant, colder. The visits spaced out even more. The calls became shorter. I became an obligation. Something he had to do, but that bothered him. And now this. Now the plan to take me to live with them. Not out of love. Not out of genuine concern. but for my retirement, for my $400 a month that they thought they could manage better than me. I opened my eyes. The living room was dim. The sun had moved and was no longer coming through the window. I looked at the wall clock. 2 hours had passed since Robert left. I got up from the couch and walked to my room. I opened the closet and looked on the top shelf. There was the shoebox where I kept my important documents. I took it down carefully. My hands were no longer shaking. Inside were my birth certificate, my marriage certificate, Edward's death certificate, the house deed, my retiree ID. Everything that proved who I was. Everything that proved that this life was mine. There were also photographs. Robert as a baby, Robert on his first day of school, Robert at his college graduation, me by his side, smiling with pride. He was smiling too. But now, looking at those photos, I wondered if it had ever been real, if he had ever seen me as anything more than a means to get what he wanted. I put everything back in the box. I put it back in its place. And at that moment, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just wait for Robert to come back, to insist, to bring lawyers or social workers or whoever was necessary to force me out of my home. I had to act. I had to protect myself. But I didn't know how. I didn't know where to start. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen drinking chamomile tea, looking out at the darkness through the window, thinking, remembering, planning. On Tuesday morning, the phone rang. It was 8:30. I was having coffee in the kitchen, still in my robe. I looked at the screen of the old phone hanging on the wall. It was Robert. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. Finally, I answered. "Mum, we need to talk." His voice sounded tense. It was no longer the cheerful, fake voice from yesterday. It was the voice of someone who is losing control and doesn't like it. "We talked yesterday, Robert." "No. Mum, yesterday you slammed the door. That's not talking. That's being childish." Childish? Me? The woman who raised him alone, who sold her rings to pay for his education, who washed clothes until her hands bled. I was the childish one. "Tell me what you want, Robert." "I want you to be reasonable." Lauren and I spent all night talking, and we came to the conclusion that you are confused, that you don't understand what's best for you. So we're going to give you a few days to think it over carefully. But I need you to understand something. That house is falling apart. You can't maintain it, and you can't live alone at your age. I'm 71 years old, not 90. It's the same thing, Mum. You are a senior. You need supervision. You need someone to look after you. Supervision. As if I were a child. As if I were incapable. I'm fine, Robert. No, you're not fine. And if you don't want to accept our help, then we'll have to look for other options. What options? There was a silence, a long, heavy silence. When Robert spoke again, his voice was lower, more calculating. There are very good assisted living facilities for people your age, places where you can be with people like you, where there are nurses, activities. You wouldn't be alone. Assisted living, nursing homes, places where they put old people when the family doesn't want them anymore, places where they sit you in a wheelchair even if you can walk, where they give you pills to keep you quiet, where you wait for death staring at white walls. I'm not going to any facility. Then agree to come with us. It's the only reasonable option. It's not the only option. I can stay here, in my house. Robert sighed, a long, exaggerated sigh, as if I were the most difficult person in the world. All right, Mum, you win. For now. But think about it. Really think about it. Because you can't keep going like this. And he hung up, without saying goodbye, without an I love you, without anything. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling the rage rising in my chest. But I also felt something else. Fear. Because Robert had mentioned assisted living, and that meant he wasn't going to give up, that he was going to keep pressuring me, that he was going to find a way to get me out of here. Wednesday. Robert didn't call, nor Thursday. The silence was worse than the calls, because I didn't know what he was planning. I didn't know what would come next. Friday afternoon, while I was watering the few plants I have in the yard, I saw an unfamiliar car park in front of my house. It was a grey car, new, shiny. A young woman, about 30 years old, got out, wearing a black pantsuit and carrying a folder. She walked to my gate and rang the doorbell. I opened it slowly without leaving my property, just peering through the bars. Ms. Ophelia Miller. It wasn't a question. It was an affirmation. She knew who I was. Yes. My name is Laura Reynolds. I'm a social worker from the Department of Family Services. Your son Robert contacted me. He says he's concerned about your well-being. I felt the ground move beneath my feet. Robert had called social services. He was trying to have me declared incompetent, to take away my autonomy, my freedom. I'm fine. I don't need help. Laura smiled. A professional smile. Cold. The smile of someone who has heard those words 1,000 times before. Ma'am, I just need to ask you a few questions. It's routine. Your son mentioned that you live alone, that the house is in poor condition, and that you might need assistance. May I come in? No. The word came out firm, clear. Laura stopped smiling. Ms. Miller, I understand this may be uncomfortable, but I have the authority to. This is my house, and I didn't invite you in. If you have questions, ask them from there. Laura pressed her lips together. She opened her folder and took out a sheet with printed questions. Are you currently on medication? No. Do you have any chronic illnesses? High blood pressure. Controlled. Can you cook for yourself? Yes. Can you bathe without assistance? Yes. Can you manage your finances? Yes. Do you receive regular visitors? From whom? From your family, from friends? My son visits when he can. My friends, too. It was a lie. I didn't have friends. The few I had died or moved away, but she didn't need to know that. Laura wrote something on her sheet. Then she looked me up and down. Her eyes paused on my old robe, on my worn slippers, on my uncombed hair. Ms. Miller, I'm going to be honest with you. Your son is considering initiating a legal process to obtain guardianship over you. He says you are not fit to make decisions for yourself. If that happens, a judge will evaluate your case. And if the judge determines that you need a guardian, your son could take control of your finances, your home, everything. The words fell on me like stones. Guardianship, control, everything. Robert wanted to take everything from me, legally. He wanted to have me declared incompetent so he could do whatever he wanted with my money, with my house, with me. That's not going to happen. Laura closed her folder. I hope you are right, Ma'am, but I recommend you seek legal counsel. This could get complicated. And she left. She got into her grey car and drove away down the street. I stood there, gripping the gate, feeling everything crumble around me. That night, sitting in my bed, with the lights off, I cried for the first time in years. They were not soft tears. They were deep sobs that came from a dark, forgotten place. I cried for Edward, for the lost years, for the son I thought I had and who never really existed. I cried for myself, for the woman I was and who I no longer knew if I still was. But at some point, between the tears, something changed. I felt a spark, small, barely perceptible. But it was there. It was rage. It was indignation. It was the certainty that I was not going to let myself be destroyed like this. Saturday morning, I got up early. I took a shower. I put on clean clothes. I combed my hair in front of the mirror. And I left my house for the first time in days. I walked 3 blocks to Miss Carmen's house, my former neighbour, the one who took care of Robert when he was a child. She was 82 years old now. She also lived alone. But her mind was still sharp, clear. I knocked on her door. She opened it with a smile. "Ophelia, what a surprise. Come in." We went into her small, cozy living room. It smelled like cinnamon and coffee. She offered me a cup, and I accepted. "Carmen, I need your advice." And I told her everything. From the phone call I overheard to the social worker's visit, Carmen listened in silence, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she sighed. "That boy was always selfish. I watched him grow up, and I always knew it. But you never wanted to see it." She was right. I had closed my eyes to the signs, to the moments when Robert showed his true character. Because he was my son. Because I loved him. Because I didn't want to accept that I had failed. "What do I do, Carmen?" She took my hand in hers. Her fingers were gnarled and cold. "You fight. You don't give in. You look for help. And you protect what's yours." But I don't know how. I don't either, but I know someone who does. Carmen got up and went to her room. She came back with a wrinkled business card. "This man is a lawyer. His name is Arthur Gallus. He defended my cousin when her son tried to take her house. He won the case. He's good, and he doesn't charge much." I took the card. It was worn, with bent corners. But the name was clear. Arthur Gallus, lawyer, and a phone number. "Call him, Ophelia. Today. Don't wait any longer." I went back to my house with the card clutched in my hand. I went inside. I closed the door, and I dialed the number. It rang 3 times before someone answered. "Hello?" It was a male voice, hoarse, tired. "I'm looking for Mr. Arthur Gallus." "Speaking. Who is this?" "My name is Ophelia Miller. Carmen Newman gave me your number. I need help. My son wants to take my house." There was a pause. "Can you come to my office on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning?" "Yes, I'll be there. Bring all your documents, deeds, IDs, bank statements, everything you have." I hung up, and for the first time in days, I felt something akin to hope. Sunday passed slowly like a wound that won't close. I spent it organizing documents, looking for old papers in forgotten drawers. The house deed was in a yellowed envelope, signed in 1983. 42 years of paying for this property. My retiree ID showed my photo from 5 years ago. I looked younger, more alive. I also found the receipts for the last 6 months. Electricity, water, phone, all paid on time, all in my name. Proof that I was capable of managing my life, that I was not confused or lost, as Robert wanted to make people believe. I put everything in a cloth bag. I left it ready by the door. I barely slept that night. I tossed and turned in bed, thinking about what I would say, how I would explain what was happening, whether the lawyer would believe me or see me as a paranoid old woman. On Monday, I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I showered with hot water until my skin was red. I put on my best dress, a grey one with small flowers that I used for special occasions. I put on a little makeup, just a little powder on my cheeks and pale pink lipstick. I wanted to look dignified, presentable, not like a woman who is losing her mind. Mr. Gallus's office was downtown. I took 2 buses to get there, the first at 8 o'clock, the second at 9 o'clock. I arrived 15 minutes before the appointment. The building was old, 3 stories high, with peeling cream-colored walls. I went up the stairs slowly. My knees protested with every step. The office was on the 2nd floor, a wooden door with a brass sign that read, Arthur Gallus, Attorney. I knocked twice. A voice from inside told me to come in. Mr. Gallus was a man in his 60s, grey hair, thick glasses, white shirt rolled up to his elbows. His desk was piled high with folders. It smelled of old coffee and paper. Ms. Miller, please sit down. I sat in a plastic chair in front of his desk. I put the bag with my documents on my lap. The attorney looked at me carefully, unhurried, non-judgmental. Tell me what's happening. And I told him. From the beginning. From the phone call I overheard. From Robert's visit with the truck. From the assisted living threats. From the social worker. I told him everything without crying, with a firm voice, as if I were narrating someone else's life. When I finished, Mr. Gallus took off his glasses and cleaned them with a handkerchief. Then he looked me straight in the eye. Your son wants your money, and he wants the house. That is clear. Guardianship is the legal path to get it. If a judge declares him your guardian, he can sell your property, manage your retirement, and you won't be able to do anything. That can happen. It can, but it's not going to happen. He took out a notepad and started writing. You are lucid, coherent. You can make decisions. That's already an advantage. Now we need to build a solid defense. First, we are going to get a medical certificate that shows you are in full mental capacity. Second, we are going to draft a will where you specify what you want to do with your assets. Third, we are going to prepare a revocable power of attorney where you designate someone you trust, not your son, to represent you if you need it in the future. But I don't have anyone else. I only have Robert. The attorney raised an eyebrow. No one? No friends? No distant relatives? I thought of Carmen. I thought of the few people who still greeted me on the street, but none of them were close enough. All right, we can appoint a court-appointed attorney for now, or myself if you trust me. I trust you. Then let's begin. This is going to cost money, Ms. Miller. My fee is $300 for the complete case, plus the costs of the medical certificate and the notary fees. In total, about $500. $500, more than I earned in a month. But I had no choice. I can pay it. I have savings. Good. I will draft the documents today. Tomorrow I will take you to a trusted doctor. And by Wednesday, your son will receive a notification that you are legally protected. I left that office feeling something strange in my chest. It wasn't happiness. Not yet. It was relief, the feeling that someone was finally on my side. But when I got home, the feeling disappeared, because Robert was at the gate, waiting for me, with his arms crossed and his face red with anger. Where were you? His voice was a growl, not a question, an accusation. I went out. Where to? That's none of your business. Robert took a step toward me. He was shaking, with rage, with powerlessness. Everything is my business, Mum, because you can't take care of yourself anymore. You're doing crazy things. Yesterday I spoke with Miss Carmen. She told me you went to her house. That she gave you a lawyer's number. What are you planning? Carmen, my only ally, had betrayed me. Or perhaps Robert had pressured her, had intimidated her. I didn't know, but the damage was done. I am protecting what is mine. You have nothing to protect. Everything you have, I gave you. I paid for this house the last 10 years when you could no longer work. That's a lie. It's not a lie. I checked the receipts. They're in your name. Yes, but I made the deposits. I paid the mortgage when you no longer had money. So this house is mine too. I felt the earth open beneath my feet. It couldn't be true. I had paid for the house, Edward and I, for 30 years. You're lying. Robert took out his phone and showed me the screen. They were screenshots of bank transfers, of deposits made to the mortgage bank, with dates from the last few years, with amounts of $200 a month. See, I paid, not you. So if you want to be difficult, I can play that game too. I'm going to prove that you didn't pay for this house, that I did, and I'm going to ask for my share. It wasn't possible. I didn't remember Robert paying anything. But my memory of the last few years was confused. There were months when money didn't stretch far enough. Months when I didn't know how I was going to pay. And Robert had appeared with envelopes of money, saying it was a gift. That I shouldn't worry. It had been a trap. Everything had been a trap from the beginning. Robert put away his phone and looked at me with contempt. You have two options, Mom. Either you come to live with us willingly, or we start a legal process where everyone will know that your son had to support you because you couldn't do it alone. Which do you prefer? The easy option or public humiliation? I remained silent. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to defend myself. Robert smiled, a cruel smile, the smile of someone who knows they have won. Think about it carefully. I'll give you until Friday. If you don't agree by Friday, I'm going to start the guardianship process. And I assure you I'm going to win. He left. He got into his car and drove away furiously. The tires screeched against the asphalt. I stood there, clutching my bag of documents, feeling everything I had built that morning crumble. I walked into my house like a zombie. I left the bag on the table, I sat on the couch, and I stared at the wall, without thinking, without feeling, just breathing. I don't know how much time passed, perhaps an hour, perhaps two, until I heard a knock on the door. It wasn't Robert. The knock was soft, shy. I got up and opened it. It was a young man, about 30 years old, in dirty work clothes and a baseball cap. He had dark eyes and a scar on his left cheek. Ms. Ophelia. Yes. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Manuel. Manuel Sanchez. You helped me many years ago when I was a child. I searched my memory. Manuel Sanchez. The name sounded distant, like an echo from another life. My mother worked cleaning houses like you. She got sick with cancer when I was 12. You lent her money for the treatment. $2,000. We could never pay you back. My mother died the following year. I was left alone. I went to live with an uncle. I lost contact with you. I started to remember. A thin woman with sad eyes who worked with me in the houses. Her name was Hortensia. Hortensia Sanchez. She had died young, 42 years old. She left a son, a quiet boy with big eyes. Manuel. Yes, Mom. It's me. A few days ago I came looking for you. I wanted to pay you back the money, with interest. But when I arrived, I saw your son yelling at you at the gate. I heard what he was saying to you, and I decided to stay nearby, to make sure you were okay. Why? Because you saved my mother. You gave her 6 more months of life, 6 months in which she was able to say goodbye to me, prepare me, tell me she loved me. That is priceless, and I owe you everything. Manuel reached into his pocket and took out a thick envelope. Here are the $2,000, plus 1,000 in interest. That's 3,000 in total. I know it's not much after so many years, but it's what I was able to save. I tried to refuse it, but he insisted. He put the envelope firmly in my hands. And there's something else, ma'am. I work as a truck driver. I know people, lawyers, accountants, people who can help you. If you allow me, I want to be your ally in this. I want to help you fight your son, because you don't deserve this. The tears I had held back all morning finally came out. I couldn't stop them. Manuel hugged me as if I were his own mother, and I cried on his shoulder. I cried with relief, with gratitude, with hope. Manuel came into my house and sat in the living room. I prepared coffee with trembling hands. I still couldn't believe he was here, that someone had come to help me without me asking. After so many years of loneliness, of feeling invisible, someone saw me. I put the cups on the table. Manuel took his and drank a long sip. Then he looked at me seriously. Miss Ophelia, I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. To be able to help you, I need to know exactly what is happening. And I told him. Again. The same story I had told Mr. Gallus. But this time I added more details. I told him about the deposits Robert claimed to have made, about the threat to prove that he had paid for the house, about my fear that it was true. Manuel listened in silence. When I finished, he thought for a moment. His fingers drummed on the table. Then he spoke. That money, he says he deposited. Do you have the bank statements? No, I only keep the payment receipts. I never asked for the full statements. We need to get them. Tomorrow morning we'll go to the bank and request the full history of the mortgage payments, all the transactions. If Robert really paid, it will be registered. But everything you paid for 30 years will also be registered. And that's what matters. He was right. I had paid for 3 decades. Robert only the last few years. That had to count for something. There's one more thing, ma'am. Robert mentioned he's going to start a guardianship process. For that, he needs to prove that you are not fit to care for yourself. He's going to try to get medical reports, neighbor testimonials, anything to back him up. We have to get ahead of him. Mr. Gallus said the same thing. What do I need? A medical certificate, exactly. But not just that. We need witnesses who will testify in your favor. People who say you are fine, that you are independent, that you can make decisions. I don't have anyone. Only Carmen, and she already told Robert I went to see her. Manuel shook his head. You have more people than you think. I'm going to testify. And I know others. People in the neighborhood who know you, who have seen you for years, Shadius, walking alone, doing your shopping, living your life. They can help. I felt overwhelmed. This man, this stranger who was a child the last time I saw him, was willing to fight for me, more than my own son had ever done. Why are you doing this, Manuel? After so many years? Why? He smiled, a sad smile. Because my mother taught me that the debts of the heart are the most important, and because I see my mother in you, alone, vulnerable, being attacked by people who should protect her. I'm not going to stand by and do nothing. That night, Manuel stayed late. We made a list of everything we needed to do. First, go to the bank. Second, get the medical certificate. Third, talk to Mr. Gallus and show him the $3,000. Fourth, Find witnesses. Fifth, prepare a strategy for when Robert returned on Friday. When Manuel left, it was almost 11 o'clock at night. I sat in the living room looking at the envelope with the money. $3,000, enough to pay the lawyer and have a safety cushion, enough to feel less defenseless. Tuesday morning, Manuel arrived at 9 o'clock sharp. He had his truck, an old red pickup with a dented bumper. He helped me climb in and drove to the bank. The branch was crowded. We waited 40 minutes before being served. When it was finally our turn, a young woman in a blue uniform asked us to sit at her desk. "How can I help you?" "I need the full payment history of my mortgage, from when the account was opened until today." The young woman typed something on her computer. "Full name and account number." I gave her the information. She kept typing. Then she frowned. "Ma'am, this account is closed. The mortgage was paid off 3 years ago." "What?" "Your house no longer has a debt. It was paid in full in March of 2022. I felt the air leave me. The mortgage was paid. Completely for 3 years. Robert had lied. He wasn't paying anything. There was no debt he could claim. "Can you give me the records of that payoff? Who made the final payment?" The young woman typed again. "The final payment was made by Ms. Ophelia Miller, with a withdrawal from your savings account. $16,000. $16,000. I had paid off the entire house. With my savings I had saved all my life. And I had forgotten. My memory had failed me, but the records don't lie. Can you print all of that? The complete history?" "Yes, ma'am. It will cost $10 for the service." "Pay it," I told Manuel. He took out the money and paid. 10 minutes later, we had a thick folder with all the documents, 30 years of payments, and the final receipt that proved that I, not Robert, had paid off the debt. We left the bank in silence. Manuel drove to a nearby coffee shop. He ordered 2 coffees and we sat by the window. "Robert lied," I said. "Yes, he lied. He probably showed you fake screenshots or deposits he made for other things, not the mortgage. But the important thing is that now we have the truth, documented, signed by the bank." I opened the folder and looked at the papers. Every payment was registered. Every penny Edward and I had sacrificed was there. In ink. Permanent. This changes everything. "Yes, but we can't be overconfident. Robert is going to try to attack from another angle. Guardianship is still a threat. We need to keep building your defense." That afternoon, we went to see Mr. Gallus. We showed him the bank documents. He reviewed them carefully, page by page. When he finished, he took off his glasses and smiled. "This is pure gold. With this, your son cannot claim the house. He has no legal basis. The property is yours, completely, but he can still ask for guardianship." "Yes, but we're going to make it difficult for him. Tomorrow I'm taking you to the doctor, a trusted psychiatrist. He will evaluate your mental state and issue a certificate. With that, plus these documents, plus the witnesses young Manuel is going to get, your son is going to have to fight very hard, and he will probably lose." We left the lawyer's office with a clear plan. Manuel drove me back home. Before I got out, he took my hand. "Miss Ophelia, there's something else I need to tell you." "What?" "I didn't just come because I owed my mother. I came because I investigated your son. I have a friend who works at the courthouse. He told me that Robert already started the guardianship process 2 weeks ago, before the social worker's visit, before everything. He already had this planned for a long time." I felt a pit in my stomach. So the social worker didn't come because Robert was worried. She came because he had already initiated the legal process. Exactly. And there's more. Robert presented false documents to the court. He says you suffer from dementia, that you forget to eat, that you leave the burners on, that you get lost in the street. All lies. But if the judge doesn't have proof to the contrary, he might believe him. How did you get that information? My friend let me see the file. He shouldn't have. But he also has an elderly mother, and it hurt him to read what your son wrote about you. That's why he helped me. We have to take that information to Mr. Gallus. I already did. He's going to request an official copy of the file tomorrow, and he's going to file a countersuit for defamation and legal abuse. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Robert didn't just want to take my house and my money. He was also destroying my reputation, telling lies about me so a judge would declare me incompetent. Manuel squeezed my hand. You are not alone, Ma'am. I'll be here. And we are going to win. I promise you. On Wednesday, I went with Mr. Gallus to see the psychiatrist. He was a man in his 50s, bald, with a gentle voice. He asked me many questions. What day was it? Who was the president? What is 7 plus 8? What did I have for breakfast? Where did I live? How many children did I have? I answered everything correctly. Then he gave me memory tests. He showed me drawings and asked me to remember them 5 minutes later. He had me solve simple math problems. He asked me to write a complete sentence. I passed everything. At the end of the evaluation, the doctor smiled at me. Ms. Miller, you are perfectly lucid. There are no signs of dementia or cognitive impairment. I will issue the certificate today. I left that consultation feeling a small but important victory. I had the paper that proved I was well, that Robert was lying. On Thursday, Manuel brought 3 people to my house. They were neighbors from the area, people who knew me by sight. One was the owner of the corner store. Another was the mail carrier who delivered my mail. The third was a woman who lived 2 houses down and always greeted me when she saw me. Mr. Gallus took statements from all of them. They said they saw me regularly, that I was always well-dressed and oriented, that I did my shopping alone, that I paid my bills on time, that they had never seen me confused or lost. They were simple testimonies, but they were true, and they were powerful. Friday arrived. It was the day Robert had said he would return, the day of the ultimatum. I was prepared. I had all the documents organized on the table, the bank history, the medical certificate, the witness statements, everything. At 10 o'clock in the morning, I heard a car. It was Robert, and he was accompanied by Lauren. Again. They knocked on the door. I opened it. Robert came in without asking permission. Lauren stayed behind, watching with those cold eyes. Well, Mum, did you decide? Yes, Robert, I decided. And I'm not leaving. I'm not going to live with you. And you are not going to take my house. Robert let out a dry laugh. We'll see about that. I smiled, a calm smile, and I handed him an envelope. What is this? Open it. Robert opened the envelope. Inside was a copy of the bank history. His eyes scanned the pages. His face turned pale. How did you get this? I went to the bank, and I discovered that you lied. The house is paid for 3 years now, with my money, not yours. Robert gripped the papers in fury. This doesn't change anything. I'm still going to get guardianship. I took out another envelope. I gave it to him. This is the medical certificate from a certified psychiatrist. It says I'm perfectly fine. Robert opened it. He read it. His jaw tightened. And this, I said, handing him a third envelope, are the witness statements that confirm I am independent and capable. Robert threw the papers on the floor. I don't care. I'll fight this until the end. Do it. But you're also going to receive a countersuit for defamation, because you lied to the court, and that is a crime. Robert looked at me with pure hatred. Lauren came closer and put a hand on his shoulder. Let's go. This is not worth it. And they left, without saying goodbye, without looking back, leaving the papers scattered on the floor. I closed the door, and for the first time in weeks, I breathed deeply. After Robert left, I stood in the middle of the living room looking at the papers scattered on the floor. I didn't pick them up immediately. I left them there as evidence, as a reminder that the battle was just beginning. Robert had come with arrogance and left with rage, and the rage of a cornered man is dangerous. Manuel arrived half an hour later. He had arranged to come to make sure everything was all right. When he saw the documents on the floor, he picked them up carefully and put them on the table. How did he react? With fury. He said he's going to fight until the end. He will, but now we will too, and we have better weapons. We sat in the kitchen. Manuel took out a small notepad and began to write. Ms. Ophelia, we need to think several steps ahead. Robert is going to try to discredit you in other ways. He might talk to neighbors. He might invent stories. He might even try to provoke situations that make you look bad. We have to protect you from all of that. How? First, we are going to install a camera at your entrance. If Robert comes back and causes a scene, it will be recorded. Second, you are going to start keeping a journal. You are going to write down everything, every day, what you did, where you went, who you spoke to. That will prove that your mind is clear and that your life is organized. Third, we are going to open a new bank account, just in your name, and we are going to transfer your retirement there. That way, Robert cannot track your financial movements. All of that sounded complicated, but necessary. I can do that. You are not alone. I will help you with every step. That same afternoon, Manuel brought a small camera. He installed it above the front door. It pointed directly at the gate and the entrance. Anyone who came would be recorded. He showed me how to view it on my phone. It was simple. I just had to open an application, and there was the real-time image. He also bought me a new hardcover notebook, green in color. On the first page I wrote, Diary of Ophelia Miller, and below I put the date. Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. In that first entry, I wrote everything that had happened in the last few days, from Robert's call to his visit today. I wrote with a trembling but clear hand. Every word was a piece of my defense. Every line was my voice. Friday, Manuel took me to the bank again. We opened a new account. Just in my name. No beneficiaries, no authorizations for anyone else. We requested that my retirement be deposited directly there starting next month. The woman at the bank explained that the change would take about 15 days, but that afterwards everything would go to the new account. Now your son cannot access your money, Manuel said as we left the bank. Even if he gets guardianship, he's going to have to fight for every penny. I felt safer, more protected. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control over my own life. Saturday morning, Mr. Gallus called me on the phone. Ms. Miller, I have news. The court accepted our countersuit. Robert was notified yesterday. And also, the judge assigned to the guardianship case requested a hearing. He is going to listen to both sides before making any decision. That is good for us. It means he's not going to decide based only on the papers Robert presented. When is the hearing? In 2 weeks, November 8th. You have to be there. Well-dressed, calm, answering clearly. It will be your opportunity to prove that Robert is lying. I'll be ready. And I mean it, ma'am. No nerves, no tears, just facts, just the truth. The judge needs to see a capable woman in you, not a fragile victim. I understand. I hung up the phone and sat down to think. 2 weeks, 14 days to prepare myself, to make sure that when I stood before that judge, he would see in me what I really was. A 71-year-old woman who still had strength, who could still make decisions, who still deserved respect. Manuel came that afternoon. He brought food, roast chicken and rice. We ate together in the kitchen. It was strange. It had been years since I shared a meal with someone. Since Edward died, I always ate alone. But with Manuel there, the kitchen felt less empty, less cold. You need to practice for the hearing, he said, as he served more rice onto my plate. The lawyer is right. You have to be calm. You have to answer without hesitation, without breaking down. How do I practice that? I'm going to ask you questions, the same ones the judge might ask you, and you are going to answer, over and over again, until the answers come out naturally. And so we did. Every afternoon for the next few days, Manuel would come and ask me questions. What is your full name? How old are you? Where do you live? How long have you lived there? Who paid for the house? Why does your son say you can't take care of yourself? What proof do you have that he's lying? At first I would stumble. I would get nervous. I would forget details. But with each repetition, the answers became firmer, clearer, more confident. Sunday I went to church. It had been months since I went. But I felt like I needed to be there. I needed a moment of peace. The church was full. I sat in the last pew. I listened to the pastor talk about forgiveness, about letting go of resentment, about trusting that divine justice always comes. But I didn't want divine justice. I wanted human justice. I wanted Robert to pay for what he was doing. I wanted the world to know what kind of son he was. As I left the church, a woman approached me. She was older than me, 80 years old perhaps. She walked with a cane. Ophelia Miller. Yes. I'm Joanna Reynolds. I worked with you many years ago, cleaning houses. Joanna, I remembered her, a small woman with a loud laugh. We had worked together in a rich family's house. She cleaned the bathrooms, I cleaned the rooms. Joanna, how long has it been? She smiled. I heard what your son is doing. People talk. This is a small neighborhood. Everyone knows everything. I felt ashamed. I didn't want people to know. I didn't want to be the neighbor's topic of conversation. Don't be ashamed, Joanna said, as if reading my mind. You are not the first mother to have a son do this to her, nor will you be the last. But I want you to know that if you need witnesses, I will speak for you. I will tell the judge that I have known you for 50 years, that you were always hardworking, honest, strong, that you don't deserve this. Tears came to me without permission. Joanna hugged me. She smelled of lavender and talcum powder. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just fight. And win. That same afternoon, Mr. Gallus came to my house. He brought more documents, papers I had to sign, affidavits, authorizations, all the legal paperwork needed for the hearing. He also brought me a copy of the file Robert had presented to the court. I read it with a racing heart. Every line was a lie. It said I left the doors open, that I forgot to turn off the stove, that I went out into the street in my robe, that I talked to myself, that I confused people, that I got lost in my own neighborhood. None of that was true, but it was there, written, signed by Robert, presented before a judge. How can he lie like that? Mr. Gallus closed the folder. Because he wants to win, and because he knows that if he can't prove that you are unwell, he loses everything: the house, the money, control. That's why he is willing to destroy your reputation. We are going to prove that he is lying. Yes, but you have to be prepared. At the hearing, Robert is going to say horrible things. He's going to invent stories. He's going to try to make you look bad. You cannot react. You cannot yell at him. You cannot cry. You just have to tell the truth calmly. The judge will notice the difference. The days passed slowly. Every morning I got up early. I showered. I got dressed. I had breakfast. I wrote in my journal. I did the housework. I watered the plants. I swept the patio. I documented everything. I wrote down everything. Manuel came every day. Sometimes he brought food. Sometimes he just came to sit with me, to keep me company, to remind me that I was not alone. One afternoon, while we were having coffee, he asked me something no one had ever asked me before. Ms. Ophelia, if you win this case, if you manage to get Robert to stay away, what are you going to do afterwards? How are you going to live? I had never thought about it. I had always been focused on surviving, on defending myself, but I had never thought about what would come next. I don't know. You have to know, because that's what's going to give you strength. You have to have something to fight for, something you want to do, something that excites you. I thought about that. What excited me? It had been so long since I felt excited about anything, only tiredness, only sadness, only routine. But there was something small, something I had dreamed of years ago and never did. I always wanted to learn to drive. Manuel smiled. Then that's what it will be. When you win, you are going to learn to drive. I will teach you. That promise stayed with me. It became my motivation, my light at the end of the tunnel. I wasn't just going to win this battle. I was also going to live. Truly. For the first time in a long time. Wednesday, 1 week before the hearing, I received a letter. It was from Robert. I opened it with trembling hands. Mum, it read, I know things are tense between us, but it doesn't have to be this way. We can still fix it. If you agree to come live with us, I will withdraw the lawsuit. We forget everything. We start over. Think about it. You still have time. Your son, who loves you, Robert. It was a trap. I knew it immediately. Robert was losing. He knew he had everything to lose at the hearing. That's why he was now offering peace. But it wasn't peace. It was surrender. It was giving him everything without a fight. I tore up the letter. I threw it in the trash. And I kept preparing. Thursday, Mr. Gallus took me shopping for new clothes. A simple beige dress, low black shoes, a light brown sweater. Nothing flashy, nothing extravagant, just dignified clothes. Clothes for a woman who respects herself. Friday, 2 days before the hearing, Manuel brought Joanna to my house. The lawyer was also there. Joanna gave her official testimony. She talked about how she knew me, about the years working together, that she had always seen me as capable, independent, lucid. When she finished, the lawyer had a smile on his face. With this, Ms. Miller, Robert has nothing, absolutely nothing. Saturday I rested. I did nothing but sit in the yard and look at the sky. It was cold. November had arrived with wind and grey clouds, but I felt strangely calm. Sunday, the day before the hearing, I went to church again. This time I didn't sit in the back. I sat in the front. I closed my eyes and prayed. Not to win. I prayed for strength, for clarity, for dignity. When I left the church, Manuel was waiting for me outside. Ready for tomorrow. Ready. Monday, November 8th. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't slept well. I spent the night tossing and turning, reviewing every answer, every document, every detail. But when I opened my eyes and saw the grey light of dawn entering through the window, I knew it was time. Today, everything would be decided. I showered with hot water. I put on the beige dress I had bought, the black shoes, the brown sweater. I carefully combed my hair. I put on minimal makeup, just powder and pink lipstick. I wanted to look like what I was, a dignified woman, a capable woman. Manuel arrived at 7 o'clock. He brought coffee and sweet rolls. We ate breakfast in silence. I could barely eat. My stomach felt like a stone. "It's going to be fine," Manuel said. "You have the truth on your side, and that is stronger than any lie." At 8:30, we left for the courthouse. Mr. Gallus was waiting for us at the entrance. He wore a dark suit and a red tie. He looked serious, professional. "Remember, Ms. Miller, calm, clarity, truth, nothing more than that." We entered the building. It was large, cold, with marble floors that echoed with every step. We went up to the second floor. The courtroom was small. There were wooden benches, a large desk at the front where the judge would sit, and 2 tables, one for us, one for Robert. We sat down. I was in the middle, the lawyer on my right, Manuel on my left. We waited. At 9 o'clock sharp, Robert entered. He came with Lauren and his own lawyer, a tall man in a grey suit with a leather briefcase. Robert didn't look at me. He sat at his table with his back to me. Lauren did look at me, with contempt, with coldness. 5 minutes later, the judge entered. He was a man in his 60s, white hair, thick glasses. He sat down and hit the desk with a small gavel. "Hearing in the case Miller versus Miller, guardianship request. Petitioner, proceed." Robert's lawyer stood up. He spoke in a loud, clear voice. "Your Honor, my client Robert Miller requests guardianship over his mother, Ophelia Miller, 71 years old, due to cognitive decline and lack of capacity to make decisions. We present evidence that Ms. Miller lives in precarious conditions, cannot manage her finances, and poses a danger to herself." Lie after lie. But the lawyer said them with such confidence that they sounded true. "What evidence do you present?" "Testimonies from neighbours who have seen Ms. Miller confused, reports that she leaves the stove on, unpaid bills, and a report from the social worker who visited the home." Mr. Gallus stood up. "Objection, Your Honour. Those testimonies are anonymous and unverifiable. The bills are all paid on time, as we will demonstrate, and the social worker did not issue any negative report." The judge looked at the documents. "Do you have copies of those anonymous testimonies?" "Yes, Your Honour," Robert's lawyer said, handing over some sheets. The judge reviewed them with a frown. "These testimonies are not signed. They have no legal value. What else do you have?" Robert's lawyer hesitated. "We have my client's direct testimony, Your Honour. He can testify about his mother's state." "Proceed." Robert stood up. He walked to the front. The judge asked him to swear to tell the truth. Robert swore. Then he began to speak. "My mother is no longer the same, Your Honour. She forgets things. She repeats questions. She cannot care for herself alone. I just want what's best for her. That she is safe. That she is protected." His voice sounded sad, convincing, almost believable. But I knew every word was a lie. Mr. Gallus stood up to cross-examine him. "Mr. Miller, when was the last time you visited your mother before starting this process?" Robert hesitated. "A few weeks ago." "How many weeks?" "I don't recall exactly. It was more than a month." "That's not true." "Perhaps." And in that visit, did you notice any strange behavior? She was distracted. Distracted or lucid? Distracted. The lawyer took out a paper. I have here the record of calls between you and your mother in the last 6 months. Only 3 calls, all initiated by her. None by you. Is that the behavior of a concerned son? Robert pressed his lips together. I was busy. Too busy to call your mother, but not too busy to start a legal process to take her house. Objection, Robert's lawyer shouted. Speculation. Sustained, the lawyer said. Mr. Miller, is it true that you told your mother that the house was paid for with your money? Yes. And is it true that you showed her supposed proof of bank deposits? Yes, because I paid. The lawyer took out another document. This is the official history from the mortgage bank. It shows that Ms. Ophelia Miller paid off the mortgage in March of 2022 with $16,000 from her own savings account. There are no deposits made by you. You lied to your mother. Robert's lawyer stood up. Objection. He is attacking my client's character. I am establishing a pattern of deception, Your Honor. Relevant to this case. Overruled. Continue. Robert was red. He was sweating. He looked nervous. Mr. Miller, did you present false documents to the court claiming that your mother suffers from dementia? They are not false. She has problems. We have a medical certificate from a certified psychiatrist that says the opposite. Did you review that certificate before presenting your request? No. Why not? Because I know how my mother is. Or because it was not convenient for you to know the truth. Robert did not answer. The lawyer let him go. Robert returned to his seat, shaking. Now it was my turn. The judge called me. Ms. Miller, please approach. I got up slowly. I walked to the front. My legs were shaking, but I stood firm. I swore to tell the truth. And I sat down. The judge looked me straight in the eye. Ms. Miller, how old are you? 71, Your Honor. Where do you live? On Morelos Street, number 122. Since when? For 42 years. Who paid for that house? My husband and I, for 30 years, and I finished paying it off 3 years ago. With what money? With my savings, $16,000 that I saved working my whole life. Your son says you cannot care for yourself alone. Is that true? No, Your Honor. I cook. I clean. I do my shopping. I pay my bills. I live independently. Why do you think your son initiated this process? I remained silent. I took a deep breath, and I told the truth. Because he wants my money, my retirement, my house, and the only way to get it is to have me declared incompetent. The judge wrote something down. Then he asked me more questions. What day was it? Who was the president? What is 15 plus 20? What did you have for breakfast? I answered everything correctly, without hesitation, without shaking. You may step down, Ms. Miller. I returned to my seat. Manuel squeezed my hand. The lawyer smiled slightly. The judge reviewed all the documents, the medical certificate, the witness statements, the bank history, the paid bills, everything. Finally, he spoke. I have reviewed the evidence presented by both parties. The guardianship request is based on unproven assertions and contradicted by solid medical and testimonial evidence. Ms. Ophelia Miller has demonstrated to be in full mental and physical capacity. There is no legal basis to grant guardianship. Request denied. He hit the gavel. Furthermore, I order Mr. Robert Miller to refrain from contacting or harassing his mother under penalty of a restraining order. This hearing is concluded. Robert got up, screaming. This is unfair. She cannot care for herself. She's going to end up dead in that house. The judge looked at him severely. Mr. Miller, control yourself or I will find you in contempt. Robert stormed out of the room, Lauren behind him, without looking at me, without saying anything. I stayed seated, shaking, crying, but this time with relief. I had won. We left the courthouse under a cold November sun. My legs could barely hold me up. Manuel took my arm. Mr. Gallus walked on my other side with a discreet smile on his face. You did very well, Miss Miller. Perfectly well. I couldn't speak. The words were caught in my throat. I just nodded. I was still trembling. But it was a different kind of trembling. It wasn't fear. It was liberation. When we got to Manuel's car, I finally let everything out. I cried. I cried like I hadn't in years. Manuel hugged me. He let me vent on his shoulder. He didn't say anything. He just stayed there. The lawyer said goodbye in the parking lot. The judge was very clear. Robert is prohibited from approaching you. If he does, call me immediately and we will ask for a formal restraining order. But I think he understood the message. He lost, and he knows it. Thank you, Mr. Gallus, for everything. That's what I'm here for. And remember, anything you need, call me. He left in his old car. Manuel and I sat there in silence for several minutes. Do you want to go home? Not yet. Give me a moment. I needed to process what had happened. I had won. Robert couldn't touch me. He couldn't take my house. He couldn't control me. For the first time in months. I was free. Manuel took me to a small cafe downtown. He ordered 2 hot chocolates and sweet rolls. We sat by the window. How do you feel? I don't know. I still can't believe it. Believe it. You fought, and you won. That is real. I drank the chocolate slowly. It was sweet and hot. It burned my tongue a little, but I didn't care. I felt alive. What happens now? Now we live. That's what happens. You go on with your life, and Robert goes on with his, away from you. But it didn't end there. I knew it wouldn't. Robert was not one to accept defeat. He was going to try something else. I knew him too well. That same afternoon, when I got home, I found something strange. The camera Manuel had installed showed that someone had been at my gate at 11 o'clock in the morning, while I was at the hearing. I reviewed the recording. It was Lauren. Alone. She had rung the doorbell. She had waited. Then she had left something in the mailbox and left. I went out to check. There was an envelope in the mailbox. I opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter. The handwriting was Lauren's. Ophelia, it said, you won this battle. Congratulations. But this is not over. Robert is devastated. You humiliated him in front of a judge. You made him look like a liar, like a thief. He won't forget that. Neither will I. You think you're so smart, that you beat us. But life is long, and things change. We'll say who has the last word. It was not signed, but it didn't need to be. It was a threat, clear, direct. I showed the letter to Manuel when he came that night. He read it with a frown. This is harassment. We can report it. I don't want more courtrooms. I don't want more fights. I just want them to leave me alone. Then we'll keep this as evidence, just in case. Just in case. Those words haunted me all night. The following days were strange. I expected to feel peace. I expected to feel calm. But I couldn't. Every noise startled me. Every car that passed in front of my house made me nervous. I checked the camera constantly, waiting to see Robert, waiting to see Lauren, waiting for the next attack. But nothing came. A week passed, then two. The silence was deafening. Manuel kept coming every day, no longer just to protect me, but to keep me company, to share life with me. We ate breakfast together. He taught me to drive. I cooked him his favorite dishes. We had become family, not by blood, but by choice. And that was stronger. In February, I got my driver's license. At 71 years old, Manuel took me to the exam. He was more nervous than I was. When I came out with the paper in my hand, he hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. "You did it, Miss Ophelia. You did it." We both cried. With happiness, with pride, with freedom. With my license in hand, Manuel helped me buy a car. Nothing fancy. A small second-hand sedan, white in color. It cost $2,500. I paid for it with the money I had left after all the legal expenses. The first time I drove alone was on a Sunday in March. I left early. I drove through the neighborhood, then on the highway, towards the lake that was 20 miles from the city. Edward and I used to go there when we were young, before life became so heavy. I parked by the water. I got out of the car. The air smelled of wet earth and pine trees. There were ducks swimming near the shore, families having picnics, children running. I sat on a wooden bench. I closed my eyes. And for the first time in years, I felt something akin to happiness. It wasn't euphoria. It wasn't overwhelming emotion. It was something deeper. It was peace. It was the certainty that I had survived, that I had fought, that I had won. I took my journal out of my purse. I had brought it with me. I opened a blank page and wrote, "Today I drove alone to the lake. Today I felt free. Today I understood that my life did not end when Robert betrayed me. It just started over. I am 71 years old, but I am still here. I still can. I still matter." When I got home that afternoon, there was a letter in the mailbox. I tensed up, but when I opened it, I saw it wasn't from Robert. It was from Joanna, my old friend. "Ophelia," it said, "I heard you learned to drive. I'm proud of you. If you ever want to go out for coffee, let me know. There is still life to live. Your friend, Joanna." I smiled. Yes, there was still life to live. The following months were different. I started going out more, visiting Joanna, going to the market not because I had to, but because I wanted to, driving to places I had never known, nearby towns, overlooks, long empty highways where I could think. Manuel got a better job, as a supervisor for a transport company. He earned more, but he still came to see me. Now he brought his fiancée, a young, sweet woman who treated me with respect, with affection. She called me Ms. Ophelia, and when she looked at me, she didn't see an old woman. She saw a person. In May, I received a call from Mr. Gallus. "Ms. Miller, I have news. Robert requested to lift the restraining order. He says he wants to talk to you, that he wants to apologize, that he says." I felt a knot in my stomach. Part of me wanted to hear him. I wanted to believe he had changed, that he had realized what he had done. But another part, the part that had learned to protect itself, knew better. "Tell him no, that I don't want to see him, that I don't want to talk to him, that he should go on with his life, and I will go on with mine." "Are you sure?" "Completely." I hung up the phone, and I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. In June, the first year of my new life, I decided to do something I had always wanted to do, but never dared. I painted my house. Not white, yellow, a bright yellow like the sun. Manuel helped me. We worked for 2 weeks. When we finished, the house looked completely different. Cheerful, alive, like I felt inside. The neighbors started to comment, some with admiration, others with criticism. But I didn't care. It was my house, my life, my decision. I also fixed the garden. I planted flowers, red roses, white daisies, yellow sunflowers. Every morning I watered them, I watched them grow, and I felt like I was growing too. One afternoon in July, while I was in the garden, I saw a car stop in front of my house. My heart raced, but it wasn't Robert. It was a young woman, about 25 years old. She got out of the car and walked toward me. Ms. Ophelia Miller. Yes. My name is Carmen Gallus. I am Mr. Gallus's niece. He told me your story. I am a journalist, and I would like to write about you, about what you lived through, about how you won. I'm not anyone important. That's not true. You are someone who fought when many would have given up. Someone who defended herself when everyone expected her to surrender. Your story can help other women, other mothers who are going through the same thing. I thought about it. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to be the center of attention, but if my story could help someone, it was worth it. All right, but tell it as it is, without embellishment, without lies, just the truth. Just the truth. Carmen came several times during the following weeks. She interviewed me, she took photographs, she talked to Manuel, to Joanna, to Mr. Gallus. And in September, the article was published in the local newspaper. The title was The Woman Who Didn't Give Up. It told my story from the beginning. The phone call, the betrayal, the legal battle, the victory, everything. The day it was published, I received dozens of calls, women who thanked me, who told me they were also going through something similar, that my story had given them hope, that it had given them strength to fight. I wasn't a heroine. I was just a woman who had defended what was hers. But if that inspired someone else, then all the pain had been worth it. Today is October, 1 year since I heard that call. 1 year since my life fell apart and I had to rebuild it. I still live in my yellow house. I still drive my white car. I still water my flowers. Robert never came back. I heard he moved to another city, that he started over. I don't know if he learned anything. I don't know if he will ever understand what he did to me. But it's no longer my problem. I let go of that burden. Manuel is still my family, Joanna too, and all the women who write to me thanking me. They are my family now too. At 71 years old, I learned something I should have learned a long time ago, that it doesn't matter how old you are, that it doesn't matter how many times you fall down. You can always get up, you can always fight, you can always choose your own life. I chose mine, and I don't regret it. If you are going through something similar, if someone is trying to take what is yours, if you feel like you can't take it anymore, listen to me. Yes, you can. You are stronger than you think. Seek help. Fight. Don't give up. Because your life is yours, and no one has the right to take it away from you. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. If it helped you in any way, leave me a comment. Share this story with someone who needs it. And remember, it's never too late to start over. Never.